You're listening to Owning the Buy Box, an IP Secure podcast. This is the podcast for agencies, brands, and aggregators who want to master Amazon, push out unauthorized competition, and take their business to the next level. You're about to hear a conversation that'll help you maximize your growth on Amazon by owning the Buy Box. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to Owning the Buy Box. I am your host, Dave Cooper. This is the podcast where we talk about Amazon and brand protection, protecting your channel, and the importance that has on your ability to be successful on a platform like Amazon. Joining me today is someone with lots of deep knowledge and experience. It's Will Hare. Will is the CEO and the co-founder of Bellavix. And Bellavix is a successful agency providing brands with a variety of services in the space. Will, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Dave, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's really protecting your brand equity and owning your buy box and your customers on Amazon. So really, really exciting topics. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your audience.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, we appreciate you being here. And, we try to invite various people in the industry, but primarily focused on, I think, people who sell for a living or enable brands to sell for a living on these platforms. And we're really trying to let people know that brand protection isn't this topic that, should live in, your outside counsel or your legal area or something you delegate. We really feel like it's a big part of how you can grow your business successfully on Amazon. What are your feelings about that?
Yeah, it's something it's definitely underappreciated. Like operations is pretty unsexy when it comes to like the business side of things. But like to be honest with you, like advertising and marketing depends on operations running smoothly. And brand protection, owning the buy box is a big part of that. Because if you don't own the buy box, then you're not getting those clicks. You can't run ads, and there's all types of issues that come up. So it's one of those things that it's underappreciated. But brands that are growing on the platform, they have MAP policy in place. They are monitoring who and where their products get wholesaled. And what that customer experience is from their website to in-store and to onto marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart.
Yeah, I feel like Bellavix, companies like yourself in your space, you're sort of in a tough spot in some cases, right? Because you partner with a brand, you want to make them successful. You're very good at what you do, but there's this X factor floating around the ether, right? And sometimes I feel like it makes it difficult for people to be successful because, like you said, you can't, perhaps you can't just pull the trigger on more marketing, right? Because you might be wasting the money. You might be pushing sales to somebody else who we shouldn't be. Do you feel like brands are starting to figure that out, that this is definitely needs to be part of their thought process?
Oh yeah, and I think you hit it on the head. By the time it gets to us, we're at the end of the road. We're performance based, so we're right before your customers. At that point, there's an issue, at the manufacturing side of things, essentially, or where it's distributed. So by the time it gets to us, we're fixing it. We're dealing with the problem, and a lot of our conversations, as difficult as they are, it's like pushing the operations team to make certain changes or to do these certain processes so that we can be successful on our end, which is the marketing and advertising side. So we help with that as a full channel service provider, but still there's only so much that we can do as an agency. So a lot of it's like, do you have MAP policy? Do you have a way of enforcing MAP policy? Do you have a way of tracking your inventory? Where does it go? Where does it end up? Because all of those it'll spill over whenever you run a really big promotion. Those products get purchased in stores, and aggressive, what do they call it? Retail arbitrage. People who do retail arbitrage will put those products on Amazon, and technically they bought it legit, so they're not violating anything. So it's important to have these measures in place because it affects the whole game.
Yep. And know where you sell. We hear that a lot on the show. Brands find a bunch of unauthorized sellers on Amazon, and it's product that came from Costco or it came from somewhere. So sometimes it's like, and you may be new, right? You just took over that portion of the business, or you're trying to change your strategy. And one of the things with brand protection, and I think this is true throughout e-commerce, is choices you make today can have an impact on your business tomorrow, sometimes years down the road. Um, we worked recently with a brand that's very well known in the homeware space, and they didn't do a great job early on, and are absolutely now trying to get their arms around it. So I think, like many problems, nipping it in the bud early on, thinking about its importance, will save you a lot of time and money in the future.
Hands down, and having the proper processes in place, just so you know when it comes time to do enforcement or to follow up with your IP people, it's not you're not herding cats, which is what it could feel like if you're trying to organize a lot of these moving parts.
I think one of the things that's cool about your experience, and I do want to talk more about Bellavix and what makes you guys unique, but from a personal perspective, maybe you could share how you got started, doing this. Yeah, how did you get thrust into this space? I did read somewhere that, in a previous life, you were a power plant engineer. So I think going from that role to this is certainly quite a journey.
Yeah, journey is an understatement, but I've been really fortunate with some of my experiences. Before I was doing Amazon, I served in the Navy and I was a licensed electrician. So that's what landed me a job in the power industry while I went to school full time and started working there. And then upon graduation, I left a very comfortable six-figure job to go make $10 an hour to start up doing marketing and haven't looked back since.
Was
So
that
it
startup in the e-commerce space?
it was, yep, it was. They were a dev shop and marketing agency, Checkmate Digital, out of Connecticut. They were some friends I went to school with, and we graduated and thought it'd be fun to run an agency type business, and that was my first foray into in the kind of the e-com world. And I started with advertising and SEO, and then just fell into Amazon and working with brands. I've always worked in agency life, so I have terrible ADD. I like to tell everybody, so I have trouble focusing on one thing at a time. So agency life was a nice variety of challenges with a variety of different categories. So there was never a dull moment, to say the least, and it's the best environment to come up in if you're just learning, how to be effective in your role and what limitations you have, so on and so forth. And I did that for a little over 10 years, and then in 2019 or 18, excuse me, decided I could do it better myself. I was managing close to 50 accounts with two sidekicks, which was a huge amount. I mean, nobody could really be a good steward of the brands they represent when you're managing that many brands, and decided we could do things differently. So left left my last agency and just said I'm going to do it on my own. By then, I'm entrenched in Amazon, had the fascination with e-commerce, had a lot of success around advertising, and decided that if I was going to run my own agency, I'm going to focus on helping brands scale on Amazon. And then we're focused on a high quality experience. So we're intentionally small, I like to tell people when we have the conversation. We were really focused on high quality results and a customer experience that kind of delivers that. And we've been fortunate. We've been able to work with some really big brands, Instant Pot, Pyrex, Derma E, Think. These are major retail brands that have worked with Bellavix in some capacity. So yeah, I've just been truly blessed. And that's a bit of how I came up, a bit of my background and how I got here talking to you today, Dave.
Yeah, yeah. It's part of what attracted me to having you on the show was not only I think you have an interesting sort of set of experiences, so a unique perspective, Um, but we work and we talk to on the show a lot of pretty big agencies, and it's a different world when you have hundreds of customers in two continents and, a quarter million products plus on Amazon. You think about the world differently. And I'm interested in Bellavix because I think sometimes it's better to be an expert in your field, providing a really high level of service with great results. Right, bigger isn't always better, and I think that's probably very true in the agency space.
Absolutely. And because we're very specialized, we get to go really deep into problems. Like at this point, generally, most of the accounts we work on tend to be vendor central accounts. The brands we work with tend to be a little larger. So they have an e-commerce department generally. So we're acting as a fractional member of their team. So because we're not managing 50, 60 accounts, we're focused on quality. We're able to dive in deep. So, when you originally approached me with the idea of the show, owning the buy box or featured offer, because they're constantly changing their names, just that, it really resonated because a lot of our brands have this problem. And they also deal with kind of the repercussions of not having control over their IP, and what it means in terms of like fraudulent products entering the marketplace, the inability to advertise and hit KPIs for stakeholders, whether you're reporting directly to the owner or a board of directors where you're responsible to deliver those results. And I can't tell you how hard it is for somebody in that position to always have to come up and say, we're not growing Amazon because we're not winning the buy box. And that only flies so many times, but it's such a big evolution to get these businesses on board with certain procedures and processes that, um, it's a process, and it's why I'm excited to talk about, dive in a little deeper on this.
Yeah, you highlight some unique challenges though, right? Because if you're dealing with just generally, you have a smaller quantity of customers, but each customer is a fairly significant brand with significant volume on Amazon, and the way that they sell their products may be very complex, and it could be decades of or more, right, of history in that supply chain, all contributing factors to what the unauthorized landscape looks like on Amazon. So I think in some ways you have to roll up your sleeves, right, and really understand their supply chain so that you could maybe point things out and help point them in a direction of changes. I would think, because some of what we deal with can be self-inflicted, right?
Oh yeah, a lot of it actually is self-inflicted. But the tough part is like if Amazon's number three, number four in terms of revenue generating platforms, generally we find a lot of our clients will just bend into whatever wholesale needs or whatever big box retail says, and that's where the challenge is. And it's also like, how do you measure missed opportunity? How do you measure lost revenue? There's some features and metrics that have been introduced. Now we can say, hey, this is roughly the market share. There's third party. Similar Web's a pretty good one that'll show you what your third party sellers do versus what you do. But it's not easy when the operation's so large. So while we have these conversations, it could be a lot of lobbying to kind of get any traction.
Lobbying and good data, because like you
Yeah,
said, you
yeah.
can't just keep showing up and sort of saying we're losing the buy box. Why are we losing the buy box? I mean, we see it a lot and I see it on the show. I see it in my role as CEO of IP Secure. It's price, right? Price is usually the driver of buy box loss. And that means now you're thinking much broader than just Amazon because they've forced you to, right? Um, like back to that Costco example, all they got to do is spot that product on XYZ website, for $1 cheaper, and the race to the bottom begins. So you pay for those choices in lots of ways. Who sells your product is almost as important as how many people are selling your product. Probably more so, actually, because at least with Costco, you could pick up the phone. They've got people, departments, things like that. You have a relationship. it's probably much more difficult when you get, to a murkier web of distributors, right?
That's actually like the what we especially in the beauty space, but also in electronics, like it's a doorway into just fake products. And like we happen to have a lot of beauty brands that we work with, and I can't tell you how often we'll find out, somebody has created a really good-looking knockoff made with, um, stuff that should not be put on your skin or ingested. And these sellers, they don't care. At the end of the day, they're manipulating the system. So like we will literally put images on some of our uh, beauty brands that say, make sure it's sold by Amazon, shipped by Amazon, or sold by Amazon. Sorry, sold by insert brand, shipped by Amazon, just so that they could be aware of like beware of fraudulent products and kind of the repercussions, but not having a grip on who is distributing your products and just kind of ignoring platforms like Amazon, where 60% of research for products, e-commerce starts on Amazon. Like these are things you want to get ahead of. It will come back in negative reviews. Why am I getting a rash? Why am I allergic to this? Like these are all things of people potentially getting fraudulent products or just not getting a good customer experience on a platform where people are going to go and they're going to cross check and figure out if you're legit and if your products are any good.
You already know your success relies on your Amazon sales growth, and that means beating counterfeiters and illicit sellers to the buy box. But do you have all the tools you need to do so effectively? IP Secure offers seller intelligence to understand and root out unauthorized sellers and push them out of the buy box through simple enforcement actions that actually work, meaning customers will only see your legitimate products and shop from your authorized sellers. Learn how at ipsecure.com.
You're not only growing your revenue, you're mitigating those risks. Those are real risks. And I think if you sell products that people put on their body, like a beauty product, you have almost like a special responsibility, I think, in many ways, a fiduciary responsibility. The risk is much more significant. When I was in my previous life, we did brand protection and worked directly with large corporate legal departments. And when you go to an automotive company and talk about counterfeit brake pads, you better believe there's a sense of urgency. When you go to a sneaker company and you talk about counterfeit sneakers, there's urgency, but it's also kind of part of the cost of doing business to some degree, right? Versus a healthcare company that frankly cannot afford to have one person be harmed.
Yeah, and you got to be careful. Ingestible and topicals, like you may not be a healthcare company, but like you could be held liable if there's a breakout. And I know Amazon's cracked down on compliance and providing proper paperwork since like 2 years ago, when they're now responsible for the outcomes of products purchased on the platform.
But part of why I started the show is because I grew up in that corporate IP world, and they only view the problem through risk mitigation. And I think that's the number one thing. I mean, that is the number one reason you do this, to keep people safe, right? And mitigate risk against your business and your consumers. But they don't think about the next most important thing, which is how does this impact our bottom line?
Yeah.
I mean, you're literally out trying to control your supply chain, but you're not translating any of that effort into how it impacts your company, from a dollars and cents perspective. And I never understood that. And that's why I love talking with agencies and sellers and people who live in the e-commerce space, because you guys get it, that yes, we're mitigating risk, we're protecting IP. Those are super important. But probably what's even more important overall is that we do it in a way that actually helps us sell more authentic product to the consumers we want to reach, giving them a good experience. And I just think that's critical.
More and more, that's where it's going. A lot of these companies that stand out, it's about the experience, and it starts. It's an omni-channel approach. The systems platforms aren't working against each other, and to tie it back, we talked about fraudulent products and kind of what that does. Also, listing quality issues. So if you guys are finding that your titles are changing, your images aren't uploading, vendor or seller central, wherever you registered the brand, and you are brand registered, brand. This isn't for just straight resellers. These are adverse effects. So, if I have 10 sellers on my listing and some of these sellers have mature accounts with really great reviews, there are resellers who do a good job. They could potentially be changing the title, or Amazon will be taking the title that they've uploaded on their end. And so now that affects your search engine optimization. A plus content, we see A plus content swap at all time. We actually split test titles, bullets, A plus content pretty much regularly with all the brands that we work with, and like that it, those are the minor differences that make large differences, like testing and running the best variations. And by not having contributorship, like you won't be running things like that. And to be honest with you, a lot of the times whatever they change it to is like it's inaccurate to what the product is. It's outdated and makes claims that might get the listing suppressed, or it's just a terrible experience, just really poor quality uh, images that it's going to affect your conversion rate, and it's going to affect your organic ranking, affects your ability to advertise. So like there's this domino effect where you can't always tie it directly to ads, but we know we could tie in all these indirect KPIs that affect our bottom line, and why we're on it. So like what are the major uh, risk of not having control over your products on Amazon? It's the fraudulent products, it's the listing quality issues, and it's the customer experience, and then the effects on marketing and ads. So like you have these four major issues that will compound upon themselves, and in the end just affect your bottom line. And the more this gets out of control, the longer it takes to kind of put these pieces together and actually have operation. Like to your point, which you brought up earlier, it could take years for things to resolve, depending on how large your operations are, and how long it takes to kind of flush out old inventory or whatever else is already on the market. So a lot of these things have ramifications beyond the person who may have made that decision.
It's amazing because you just outlined essentially all the critical components of an e-commerce operation, and they're all negatively impacted when you have an influx of unauthorized sellers. It's kind of amazing that it's not probably the first thing you think about when you want to optimize your performances, because they're all connected, like you said, and like dominoes.
And it's the reason we do full channels. So like why we don't do advertising only, and why we tend to get selected over agencies that only offer that service is like, listing quality, the attributions on the back end, making sure things are uploaded, compliance documents. Like these are all the unsexy part of running an Amazon business, but if done effectively, is what's required to scale and to increase sales and to get more market share. Because Amazon certainly isn't going anywhere, and there is in the U.S. is it like 96 million Prime subscribers? I know it's like 300 million worldwide, give or take. So there's a large subset of adults who will shop on Amazon just because that's their platform.
Even if you don't, like I met with a big sports brand recently, and their comment to me in the beginning, they made a comment in the beginning of the call that they're like, well, we don't sell on Amazon, which is amazing to hear them say that. And I think, you know, what he sort of meant was we don't benefit from the sales that are occurring of our products on
Yeah,
Amazon
that sounds about right.
consciously, right?
Yeah.
So this is a huge brand, world known around the globe, and to sort of say you don't sell on Amazon because you've consciously sort of dismantled your store, or you've pulled out or whatever, you're trying not to participate. But to your point earlier, it doesn't matter. Amazon is a search engine. It's not just a storefront. So no matter whether you like it or not, Nike's a great example, right? Of they pulled out, and Nike is still one of, I think, the number one most searched keyword on the platform is Nike. Yet there's no Nike store um, but there's plenty of their product.
Plenty, yeah, and they,
Yeah.
you're abandoning your customers if you think about it too. I mean, these people are expecting it, and I bet if that brand looks at their products and reads some of the reviews, I bet a lot of those reviews aren't tied to a poor product experience. It's probably tied to a poor customer experience, and that's the outlet. And like I said, then other people read those reviews, but that drives me crazy. Um,
That's super interesting you mentioned that too, because one of the things, it's not really about uh, seller reviews are more helpful because product reviews are not very helpful. And at least my experience when you're trying to think about, understanding this problem at a deeper level, because to your point, it had something to do with the buying experience or the fulfillment experience or the price or something or what have you. And that's a seller driven problem. Um, Amazon's unique. It's one of those ecosystems where everybody's sharing content, which is again, something you pointed out, creates a level of real complexity, and you can't ignore it. Your customers are going there. They're all there, whether you want them to be or not. So, although it is interesting to see the trend now of brands trying to, really wanting to create their own identity, trying to drive more direct to consumer business through their website. Right. The growth of Shopify is indicative of that. People trying to create their own identities, but it doesn't seem like Amazon is slowing down at all.
Yeah, I think there's room for both, to be honest with you. In some way, they will work together. What does it look like? But Amazon's also stepping up the measurement of lifetime value. At the Accelerate conference last week, they're rolling out new features with regards to email marketing and measuring lifetime value. So, like a lot of the issues we've had as an agency in the past of like why it's hard uh, to get brands to invest and to talk about lifetime value and retention marketing. These are all items that they are addressing. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out. Obviously, I drink the Kool-Aid. I run an Amazon agency, so I don't think it's going anywhere anytime
Yeah.
soon. But I may be biased.
Yeah. I'll tell you, and just when everybody starts to kind of get like beating, everyone's beating up on Amazon and this and that, they come back and they do
Yeah,
a bunch of cool stuff, or they'll build some really great tools to help you reach consumers, or they improve the consumer experience.
yeah,
Um, I shop on Amazon all the time, right? I mean, it's interesting. I talked to my wife about the metamorphosis we've gone through over the years, where every Christmas time she'll do Christmas shopping, and it started out where she only would shop in the store because she wanted to see the products, right? She wanted to see the stuff she was going to buy. And
just
then she
wanted the
started shopping,
experience.
yeah, a little bit on Amazon, where just the things that were hard to get, that she couldn't find in the store, she would order them on Amazon. Now we have a completely virtual Christmas,
Yeah,
right?
and actually,
Everything.
due to COVID, I think a lot of it's virtual as it is, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
you're an East Coast guy, so you got family over closer to me.
It's crazy. They've made it, Amazon has made it so easy to find what you want and buy it at the best price 99% of the time. And so as long as they keep nailing that as a brand and as a seller, it needs to be, I think, really at the forefront of your mind,
And they're rolling out a new program now. They announced it at that Accelerate event too. It's their warehousing distribution. Essentially, they overexpanded. They bought way too many warehouses. So now they're trying to get people to come in underneath their fulfillment services, and they'll ship your products in unmarked boxes and fulfill website orders or your Walmart orders or like whatever other orders. So they're already making moves. It's an interesting time. That's why I said I think job security wise, we're good to go. It'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
what it looks like in 5 years from now if it's not even larger by tenfold.
I love it. It's almost like AWS for fulfillment.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, which is an amazing business that they've created. So I love it. I mean, if you're good at it and you have excess capacity in that area, monetize it. But do it agnostically. I love that right. It could be your Walmart product. It could be any product for anywhere. And they're still going to do it because they're good at it. I think that's really smart. And some of the, like you said, the email marketing programs they've rolled out. I heard they're working on some new ways to make it easier for folks to buy from Amazon externally in other
Buy with
places.
Prime. Yeah, they
Yeah,
got a
the buy with Prime
influencer
thing is
program
cool.
now. Yeah,
That's cool. I think that's super smart because they're realizing, they can only get so much juice, from their own platform. And look, they got a lot of smart people over there thinking about how to do this.
they do. Smarter than me, that's for sure.
But it all comes back to like how important it is to have a partner, an agency in the space, whoever you work with, to be with someone who knows what they're doing. Because again, I think brand protection has a tendency to be relegated to the side. Not that it isn't important, because it is, but it's not thought about as part of this overall experience and business process, which is usually pretty critical for that brand's success.
To be honest with you, it's usually only a problem once it's crushing you. Once you hit a sales plateau, or like once it's a problem where you're like, crap, now I got to deal with this. So,
Do you ever work
unfortunately,
with brands or like where their understanding of their landscape is actually quite different than what the reality is?
on Amazon all the time, to be honest with you, like they'll say,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a different marketplace. Like they'll say our top competitors are X, Y, and Z, and in retail it's X, Y, and Z. But on Amazon it might be like X, and then some brand overseas that nobody knows, but it's a really competitive price, and then so that's always a little different. But for the most part, like operationally, they know what they're doing, what they're pushing, so they're usually pretty tapped in there. It's just like who they think their top competitors are will always be different.
Yeah. If I was going to start a beauty brand today on Amazon, what do you think would be, sort of the one or two big pieces of advice you would give me?
The riches are in the niches. So whatever you find, make sure it's a niche and a niche. Beauty. I don't think the world needs another anti-aging cream. I think that is club everyone. So I think you know that, and if I was selling it on Amazon, it would have to be like a unique qualities. Like right now, I know it's food essentially. So using vegan type ingredients to make. So I would follow trends like that, and then of course sell my product on Amazon. That would be my three tips.
What'd you think of the Hero Cosmetics acquisition?
I'm unfamiliar. Is that the Amazon only brand that got?
Well, I think they're now distributed more widely, but it was it was an Amazon brand that was started specifically on Amazon. And they got bought by, a ton of money, and had a great, I'm trying to remember who purchased them. It's totally escaping me right now. But if you Google it, you'll see. But it's another one of these really big successful stories, right?
Yeah,
Started
a
it
lot
on
of
Amazon.
aggregators. Yep,
Yeah.
Thrasio built their whole agency and philosophy on aggregation, essentially, of
Yep.
brands and talent.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. Amazon has created such a powerful thing that there are ecosystems within ecosystems, that have been created, which is pretty cool, which is
It's a
really,
great way
really
to
cool.
MVP a product too. I think it has an audience baked in, so you can really see is there demand for this before I go build the brand around it. So lots of different ways to use it, and obviously it's not going anywhere. Mentioned before, it's big, and like the third party data that's affecting advertisers from targeting customers on their mobile devices anywhere else. Amazon doesn't really have this problem as much because the applications and how it's tied to your TV. So a lot of its advertising data is based on shopping data, and it's still affected to some degree by these updates to the privacy policies, but it's not. It has its own database it's leveraging.
Well, Will, this has been a great conversation. I think you got a unique perspective. It sounds like Bellavix provides a lot of value to the brands that you work with, and we appreciate you coming on and giving us your perspective about brand protection. Hopefully, you and I have discussed, at least one or two things that someone found valuable today. So I really appreciate your time.
Dave, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. Looking forward to coming back some other time and chatting with you.
Absolutely, Will. Good luck to you. Thank you.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Owning the Buy Box, a show from IP Secure. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share episodes that you love. That helps us keep delivering you the tools you need to sharpen your competitive edge and ensure your authorized sellers always own the buy box. We'll see you next time.